Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon. Brought to you by Olipop. I almost did not say that. That's something I'm going to have to get used to. But yes, this version of OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live is brought to you by Olipop. If you love the fizz and you love being healthy, Olipop is your choice with 14 different flavors. Cola,
Dr. Goodwin.
Dr. Goodwin, if you want to sub in the other doctor, and lots of other things that they like, root beer, all those type of things. So make sure you go to your local health store and get Olipop. It's good. I like it. Parker likes it. Spencer likes it. We all like it. All right. But yes, welcome to OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live, brought to you by Olipop. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with my man Parker Thune. Spencer Forsythe's on the board. And
promo code ChampU20 for
yes.
20% off your Olipop online order. Let me just slip that in there before we slide right into what promises to be a jam-packed show. We got a lot to talk about. ChampU barbecue preview, a recap of the first official visit weekend. Hey, the Sooners' first SEC schedule got released tonight, so
I feel like the lead. That's number one.
Yeah, well, and you had a surprise transfer portal entry from the program earlier this week, which we'll have to get to at some point. Lord knows the super chat will drag it out of us if we don't get to it organically. But I feel like the natural place to start, Brandon, is with the release of the SEC schedule. And I really like the home slate for Oklahoma in particular, getting Alabama at home, Tennessee at home. I think those were the two home matchups that Sooner fans wanted to see above all others. Is obviously you want to see how you stack up against Nick Saban and his program, which has been the best in college football for 15 years in an overall sense. And all of the subplots that come with a Brent Venables, Josh Heupel matchup. Not to mention the fact that you got Joey Halsley on staff at Tennessee, another former Sooner, and
Spencer Rattler may be in his final year at South Carolina.
If he plays, he'll have an extra year if he wants it. I doubt he's there in 2020.
He may not want it, but he may have to take it. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to say it.
Either way, you get the Beamer Bowl.
Yep.
You get Alabama. You get Tennessee at home. Got to take a road trip to LSU, which I am not thrilled about, Brandon. Baton Rouge is not my favorite place in the world. In fact, I got a text as soon as the schedule went public from somebody that said, "Drunk Cajuns, here we come."
Yeah, I'm not going to say what I feel about Baton Rouge, but I am excited about potential night game there.
I'm
excited for all the smoke, really. Like, I want the smoke. Just as a media member, I know I'm not a player or a coach, but I want all the smoke, man, because it's going to be fun.
I think that road trip to Auburn is going to be phenomenal. That's maybe the road trip that I'm looking forward to the most. In fact, that's definitely the road trip I'm looking forward to the most. The trip to the SIP, Oxford, Mississippi, that ought to be fun. You go to Columbia, Missouri to, I guess, reanimate what is a rather one-sided, quote-unquote, rivalry series with the Missouri Tigers that hasn't been played in over a decade at this point. So I know there's technically a rivalry there. I don't feel like either side really regards it as much of one, but you get a familiar foe from days gone by in Missouri, get to travel to Jordan-Hare Stadium, which is an awesome environment and atmosphere for a football game in any setting, but let's hope that's a primetime one because that would be a ton of fun. Then, of course, you got the trip to Death Valley and the SIP as well. So I like this slate a lot. I feel like if there is a clunker, it's probably Missouri. But other than that, man, you didn't get Vanderbilt. You didn't get Kentucky. Didn't get Mississippi State. A lot of those programs that you would regard as lower tier or mediocre
Big 12 in the
SEC. Yeah, they're not on this slate. And so Missouri, you would hope, is kind of your punching bag. I would imagine they're breaking in a new staff at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But You got 6 really compelling matchups elsewhere on the schedule, as well as the perennial rivalry series against Texas, which we knew was going to be on the slate one way or another.
Man, I'm just hyped. Like I was talking to my wife earlier, and I was telling we were rewatching it, and just kind of I was taking mental notes of what Brent Venables was saying. I was taking mental notes of Gabe Ikert, Teddy Lehman, obviously Toby Rowland, just kind of things that they hit on. And I think the one thing that may not be talked about enough is the fact that the very first game of the 2024 season very well may be Alabama, Oklahoma to kickstart everything in and get that power punch that the SEC likes to do to start the season, because they don't do the traditional schedule like the Big 12 or the ACC or these other programs where they have all these non-cons and then roll into the conference play through mid-season onto the end. They start off with something really hard, like a big matchup. Almost everybody has some sort of interconference matchup, right? And then they roll into a second game with a potential non-con, something FCS or a lower tier FBS program. And then they go into a harder mid-tier FBS kind of non-con. And then they roll into more of a conference slate before the end of the year. You get that random SEC week where they're all playing a bunch of cupcakes to kind of let their programs, and they do it. It's purposeful, mind you, because it allows them to get extra W's on the back end of the schedule, where people are notorious for what have you done for me lately. We're relevancy biased people. Everybody is, media, fans alike, right? And so that's what the SEC is going to do. And that's something that us as media, you guys of Oklahoma fans, are going to have to get used to. But I think it's badass that we could be sitting here talking about all summer Oklahoma, Alabama, potential Jackson Arnold starting his first game, if he doesn't do something this year, obviously, in the SEC versus Alabama. And look, to be honest with you, Oklahoma in 2024 may be way better than Oklahoma in 2023, as long as, transfers and all that type of stuff. So this thing is actually setting up quite nicely for Oklahoma. It's just BV, that staff, they've all got to kind of, hold on to the roster, continue to build the roster. And if they can have another recruiting class like they did in 2024, obviously with a little bit more defensive line emphasis involved there, I think you're looking at a really strong case for Oklahoma to at least be 8-4 and 9-3, 10-2 year one in the SEC. And I think that's, and I don't know if some fans will be like, that's not good enough. No, year one, you probably will take 9-3, 10-2.
If you go 9-3,
yes,
year one in the SEC, I think that's a big win looking at how
that's
difficult that
win.
schedule is going to be to navigate. Yes. And here's the thing. The college football playoff expands in 2024. So you win 9 games in the SEC, you go 9-3, you are at the very least in the hunt for a college football playoff berth. That's kind of the threshold. 10 wins and you're definitely in. But 9 wins and you're already on the bubble, as it were.
No, I agree. I think that's a perfect fitting. Even maybe, 8-4 is probably stretching, but if you're an 8-4, year one in the SEC, you probably take it and you move on, because it's going to take some adjusting. It just is. The style of play is different week in and week out than it is in the Big 12. You've had to, and that's why Oklahoma has been so adamant in how they've been recruiting. And I know people are like, well, what about the defensive line? Okay, take the defensive line out of the equation right now. And I know that's such a huge factor, and you have to have a big-time defensive line to be successful in the SEC. Noted, everybody understands that. That's a given. However, when you look at how they're recruiting as far as secondary players, as far as their linebackers, just their rovers, the cheetah types, long, rangy, big, fast guys, they're recruiting for the SEC, and that's what they've been trying to build the roster for. And when they go into the transfer portal and they go grab the Dejon Terrys of the world, the Devon Sears of the world, those type of guys are to help anchor down that defensive line, and maybe they'll develop into what you need them to be. Obviously, Dejon Terry's already produced in the SEC, so you know he can do it. It's just a matter of can these other guys adjust and be what you need them to be in the SEC. And yeah, that's a year down the line, but it's really cool to think about and kind of project forward. And Oklahoma's roster, projectile wise, looks halfway decent as long as there's not a lot of transfers and attrition, right? Like it doesn't look that bad going into the SEC. It could have been a lot worse. And I'm telling you, if Muleshoe would have been here, it probably would have been very much so worse because it would have been very offensive centric and they would have been struggling defense. Look, they're in USC with all the California guys, right? And they're going after 3-star defensive backs and stuff.
Well,
and they're going to get the Marcellus Williams of the world's probably, but that's his brother's also there.
and
But
here's what I think you can say about what a Riley regime would look like making the transition to the SEC versus the Venables regime. 2022 would have been better. It would have been with Riley as your head coach. 2023,
100%.
yeah, 2023. Caleb Williams being a junior, probably like you're probably more confident about an Oklahoma team fronted by Caleb Williams than any alternative heading into 2023. But 2024, obviously at that point, Caleb Williams is out the door one way or another. You got to make the move to the SEC. And with the way that Oklahoma was recruiting and developing defensively, I don't care who's playing quarterback for that team at that point, Brandon. That team, absent some very high-profile transfers on both sides of the ball to bolster the depth and probably at least a few to be plug-and-play starters, that team would have gotten their lunch eaten in the Big 12. Or I'm sorry, not the Big 12, but the SEC. Like that team moving to the SEC, that's baptism by fire right there. And it would not have been a pleasant experience for Sooner fans. Not that 6 and 7 was pleasant. And I know there are probably some cynics out there like, well, I mean, last year wasn't pleasant either. Nothing's pleasant about the state of OU football. Well, let's see how 2023 goes. But moving ahead to 2024 with some of your key defensive contributors at that point being at the very least experienced at the collegiate level. When you think about Peyton Bowen and PJ Adebawore being sophomores at that point, same to be said for Makari Vickers, Josiah Wagner, Lewis Carter, Samuel Masigo, Jaron Canix, a junior at that point. And then if you can get Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman and the guys from that cycle that have cracked it on the defensive side to return for their senior years, which I think there's a pretty high probability of that at this point.
Yeah.
You get those guys to return. Oklahoma actually has the chance to be a very good defensive team, SEC or no SEC in 2024. But I think a lot of that depends on how things go here in 2023 as well.
No doubt. No doubt. As I fix my mic, talk about something here.
Okay, it's time for my filibuster. Mongo via the super chat. Thank you for being a super chat regular, Mongo. Kicked in $10 and said, my internet has been down since Monday. What did I miss? Shout out to Mrs. Selman. Well, I think that brings us to the subject that Mongo is hinting at. And that would be the fact that Derek LeBlanc is going to be transferring back to the state of Florida. And he's going to be departing Oklahoma before ever appearing in a game. And the noise surrounding Todd Bates as a recruiter and a coach, Brandon, has only intensified in the aftermath of LeBlanc's announced departure. Now, whether that is fair or not, and I, for one, do not think it is fair, there are many that are calling Todd Bates' recruiting acumen into question based on the class that he signed in year one, which at this point only consists of a couple of 3-stars in Ashton Sanders and Marcus Strong. And so we've exhausted the Bates discourse. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. You know my stance. You know Brandon's stance on Bates. what is undeniable and what everybody, regardless of their feelings on base, can agree on at this point, though, Brandon, is that this only amplifies the necessity of a couple of big time splash signings at defensive tackle in the 2024 class. We've been saying for months, you got to have David Stone for so many reasons, right? David Stone is the one guy in this entire class that you have to have. There can be no excuse. Like, you got to have him. That was true before. It is all the more true now.
No, it's I mean, and if you haven't been on OU Insider, we've talked about it. He's on campus right now, or was earlier this afternoon, this evening. So Michael Patterson McDonald was with him. Michael Patterson McDonald's father dropped them off earlier this afternoon. He's supposed to be going back later on to hang out with them and finish up the visit. So there's look, getting David Stone is priority number one for Oklahoma, and it has been priority number one since the day Todd Bates was hired. Like, he went, like, if there was anybody that he was going to go after, it was David Stone the second he showed up. He didn't have much of a shot at Clemson, but that was his number one guy at Clemson still. So when he got to Oklahoma, that was the first call he made. And so that shows you the priority David Stone was even a year out, 2 years out. So you start looking at that and you start talking about, he's kind of, I guess you would call him a program changer in a sense, because Oklahoma hasn't gotten a guy like that since what Gerald McCoy, I guess, would be the last top tier guy that they've gotten that's on that level. I know they've had some other guys. Perrion Winfrey was huge coming out of JUCO, being the number one JUCO player in the country. Alabama, everybody wanted him, and he chose Oklahoma. But at the end of the day, as far as overall talent, as far as high school talent, as far as a guy that you look to be a program builder and a program changer, that's exactly what David Stone is. And everybody wants to harping back on the David Hicks situation, and that's fine. You can do that if you want to cause yourself heartache and all that type of stuff. But when you look at it, as far as a guy that is more of a magnet personality, they're not even comparable. They're just not. And David Stone just has like this aura around him. And the thing is that the guy that may be in the middle of all this with Caden Durham, with Xavier Robinson, with David Stone, the guy that may be the ringleader of all of it is Michael Patterson McDonald. That people kind of are like, what? No, he literally is.
He's got a very, very fun personality.
And they all come back to see him. They all went to Westmore, did they not? To go watch him. So, I mean,
and I know a lot of these fans haven't really had the chance to experience much of Michael Patterson McDonald to this point, but trust me, you get to know that kid, you spend time around him. It's very evident why he's got the sway that he does with so many of those guys. And it's just because he's a super fun dude to be around, man. He'll just talk and talk and talk, and he's real, he's genuine, he's got a sense of humor, and way beyond his years in terms of maturity, which is a testament to his father, certainly the way he was raised, but it's also something that's going to come into play big time down the line, not just with guys like Stone and guys like Durham, but I mean, we've seen the effects in years past, Brandon, of a guy like that who has no shame about putting himself out there on social media and making pitches to his peers to try and get them to come along with him. And so if Oklahoma can get Michael Patterson McDonald committed, and I think there's a very strong chance that happens, then especially if it comes in tandem with David Stone, that duo has got the chance to make some stuff happen for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail down the stretch. So we like where Oklahoma sits with a lot of their top targets right now. Not all of them, that isn't without exception, right? It's stocked down on a few of those guys, admittedly. One being a guy that they have a chance to kind of stem the tide with in Joseph Jonah Ajonye this weekend. But there will come a point in time, probably August or September, where most of the class is committed, but we're still sitting here wondering, okay, who are the 5-6 guys still on the board that round this thing out for Oklahoma? And it's at that point in the cycle, especially, that kids like Michael Patterson McDonald that are cut from that cloth really come into play.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the, he's not going to be 6'2", 210-pound safety that some SEC guys are going to be. But for his size, for his stature, he has a lot of speed. He does have a lot of power. Obviously, like you brought up his father, Larry, I went to college with, have known for years. Michael was that little tyke running around us whenever I think we were juniors or seniors in college. So it's kind of a weird deal. And yeah, he's got a lot of his dad in him, just tough, rugged, just kind of gonna pull through everything, but just has a very vibrant personality to go with it. And that's why you see a lot of these kids kind of cling to him, and they grew up playing together. And the odd thing is if they all had stayed together, they would all be playing on the same high school team right now. And what a scary sight that would be, to be honest. Like, it would be something that we hadn't seen in Oklahoma in years, where you would have what, 4 4-stars and a 3-star on one team. That's absurd. So, but in regards to David Stone, look, the fact that he shows back up from Miami, he takes a break on Monday. Yeah, Tuesday, works out, whatever. Then on Wednesday, he's in Norman 2 days before he's supposed to be on his official visit, or 48 hours before he's supposed to be taking an official visit. That says a lot. To me, that says a lot. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But if you're an Oklahoma fan, you've got to have, I wouldn't say be overconfident, be like, oh, he's a lock. But at the same time, I would sit there and say, this has a lot of, again, David Hicks feel to it, where David Hicks kept showing up. You kept hearing about all these other schools like Oklahoma and Oregon with David Hicks, right? But where was he every Saturday? Where was he any chance he got to go take a visit at? He was in College Station. So it's kind of like the old adage, follow the visits, right? That's where my head's at with this. And that's why I feel like Oklahoma has a really good chance. But, you don't want to put the cart before the horses, right? That's just kind of the deal that sometimes you get caught doing in recruiting. And so let's see how this official visit plays out. Let's see how this unofficial, see how it went down, which we expected all went really well. You're going to hear the same bylines of, oh, it's great, Oklahoma's home, all that type of stuff. You're going to hear all that. But I want to hear some other people's insight that maybe were around them, that, we're getting a good feel, maybe a negative feel, like they don't have like a ulterior motive to tell you something one way or the other. And I think that's where Parker and I are going to wait on with the David Stone situation. And don't get us wrong, like, we both think Oklahoma leads. I think today's visit, last week's visit, the week before's visit, I think they're all pretty telling. But again, you don't want to get the cart before the horses, and you want to kind of slow down a little bit and see how this official visit plays out. I think the interesting thing's going to be is if they take the Michigan State visit. Right now, there's some buzz that may not happen. So I think this weekend's visit is very, very crucial for that. And if that visit doesn't take place, and then David Stone decides to show up to the party in the Palace instead of going to A&M, I think that's going to be pretty telling, because there's a lot of buzz that he wants it done by the first 2 weeks of August. He doesn't want to have to deal with this during his senior season. That's what we're hearing right now. Could that change? Yeah, obviously recruiting's crazy. It changes, but right now that's what we're hearing.
Who was it last year? It might have been Peyton Bowen, but like there came a point in that recruitment where my admonition to everyone was believe nothing regarding the timeline. I think it was Peyton Bowen. Like anytime the timeline would get brought up, I just tell people, hey, believe nothing. That's kind of where I'm at with David
Stone. Yeah, it was
Stone.
100% Peyton Bowen. Oh, yeah, he's going to do it for us. But David's been saying this for months. He hasn't deterred from, I want to do this at this certain time. He hasn't publicly stated it publicly to people, but he stated it to me. He stated it to other people that know him halfway decent, that that's kind of where what he has in mind. Now, again, he hasn't stated it publicly, so that's why I say let's see how all this plays out, because it could very well change. I just don't think that he's going to want to keep dealing with all this through his senior season. And being that he's going to be playing for IMG and he's going to be traveling all over the U.S. anyways for his Friday night games, he's not going to have a lot of time for official visits. It's just not going to have a lot of time. So I think that's another thing that could play in here. And what if him and Caden Durham and Mike Hill and all them want to announce on the same day? Like, these are things that you need to put in your mind when you get a 3 or 4 guys that are that close. We've seen it before where they're all like, you announce this day, I announce this day, boom, and they do it consecutive days or, within the same week and all that type of stuff to kind of get the momentum rocking. So these are things, if I'm an Oklahoma fan, I just keep in mind. If I'm you guys, just those are the type of things I could see play out with him just because of who he is and how he wants to do things. I'm going to say this. He is not the type of person that's just going to put a graphic up and say, I'm committed. No, he's going to do a television show or a YouTube with Rivals or 24/7 or On 3 or something like that, or a podcast. It's going to be a splash. If it's David Stone, it's going to be a splash.
Yeah.
Because that's who he is. So
now let's stay on the defensive line for a moment and talk about a kid that was just in Norman yesterday for camp and will be back on Friday to start his official visit. How about Jay-Sean Ross, man? Because that recruitment in general was very quietly trending in favor of Oklahoma, and we'd been dropping hints to that effect on OU Insider. But I would say over the weekend, I went to see him up over the weekend at a team camp at the University of Central Missouri, and it was there talking to him that I made the decision. Okay, like this, I'm ready to call this one. Gonna put in the future cast. Feel overwhelmingly good about where OU stands here. And it seems like in the aftermath of that, Jay-Sean Ross has been very open about his love for Oklahoma and Miguel Chavis, interacting with Sooner fans on social media, reposting the future cast aggregations and the visit pictures, and people tweeting at him from the OU Twitter army. And in general, like what really underscores this for me, I told this story on the radio, I'll tell it again. We're out there yesterday on the half field outside the Switzer Center, and the defensive line is going through drill work, and somebody comes driving down Jenkins Street in a truck, rolls the window down and yells, "Boomer!" Nobody responds. No, like Bates, Chavis, the assistants, the players, nobody bothers to acknowledge this guy. Nobody on that entire field acknowledges it except for Jay-Sean Ross, who instantly whips his head around and goes, "Sooner!" So, I mean, like, that just kind of underscores where this recruitment is at right now. He's going to be back on campus for his official visit starting Friday, and it would be a major shock at this point if that kid ended up anywhere else. And one of the things that he has repeatedly mentioned on social media the last few days, Brandon, is that whenever he commits, he's going straight into recruiting mode and trying to bring others along with him. So if you can wrap that one up this weekend, and I think there's a chance that happens. If you can
Yeah,
wrap that one up this weekend,
it's a good start.
things looking nice.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Jay Sean for a minute, and this isn't people don't need to say, oh no, oh no, he's super raw. I think people need to understand how raw this guy is as an edge rusher. Like he's still learning how to use his hands. He's still learning how to counter moves and all that type of stuff. He's still learning his footwork, kind of the karaoke crossing, so you don't get too far upfield and you go tight, straight line to the quarterback, all those type of things. During one-on-one, there was a 2025 offensive lineman who I've reported I thought was going to get an offer on OU Insider named Jonte Foreman out of Cypress Bridgeland. And that dude was unbelievable. Unbelievable. He is all of 6'5". His arms are super long. And when Jay Sean would put his hand in the dirt, he had a little bit of trouble combating Jonte Foreman. And then you could see the rawness. Now, don't get me wrong. Jay Sean's first step was ridiculous. It's just Foreman was so well coached at his high school. He was so well coached. Obviously, Bill Beanbo was helping him. And he was just adding to that guy's repertoire that he already had coming into that camp. And every camp that kid's gone to, he's dominated and picked up offers. His dad was talking to me. Jonte Newman. Kobe Foreman is his dad's name. And talking to his dad is all 6'8", former basketball player. And he said, man, we don't come to these camps to come up empty-handed. We come to these camps to get offers. And my boy is going to get an offer. And he was very adamant about it. Watched it take place. He did some really good things against. Now, I'll also say this. When Jay Sean got to stand up as a jackbacker and rushbacker, he ate everybody's lunch. Jonte's included. And so
that dude from a 2-point stance, lethal.
Yes, 3-point. He's got some work to do, but you see the tools. You see what it can be because his first step is so dynamic. It's just he doesn't know how to use his hands. He's heavy-handed. He's got a good punch. He doesn't know how to combat when a offensive tackle reacts to his punch and hits his outside or inside shoulder. He doesn't understand his hand and his handwork yet. And that's going to come. And when he ever gets to that, oh my,
now
it's going to be awesome.
Everybody's got comparisons. Everybody's got opinions right now in the super chat on Jay Sean Ross. Some people saying they see him as a cheetah. Some people see him as an outside linebacker. Look, here's the deal with Jay Sean Ross. He's going to be a D-end. He's going to be a D-end. And he's got the type of build. How much does he weigh right now?
215, 220?
He's about 225 right now.
Yeah, he's big, people. I think you guys are underestimating.
I tell you this, he was 240 when I saw him in February on the 7-on-7 circuit in Tulsa. So he's dropped a lot of weight. But he definitely has the frame to where you can foresee that guy carrying 255, 260 pounds easy. But honestly, the comparison that I make is, and in talking to some well-placed sources around the Switzer Center, it kind of feels like they have the same opinion. There was a kid in the 2022 class. I guess 2023. Dang, we're already done with the 2023 cycle. I'm losing track of time,
We've been done for a while, homie.
But there was a kid in the 2023 cycle who was a heavy Oklahoma lean early in his recruiting process. A lot of folks will remember the name Sean Davian Bradley from Platte City, Missouri. The new staff got to town. They'd been in touch with him at Clemson. He wanted the OU offer. OU didn't really they entertained him for a while. They ultimately did not end up offering, and it was because they didn't sense enough nastiness in the way that he played the game. Jay Sean Ross reminds me so much of Sean Davian Bradley, but he is nasty, and he is mean, and he's a fierce football player. Not to mention, I think he's better built for what Oklahoma wants him to do. I think one of the hangups with Sean Davian as well was He was kind of narrow, had a hard time keeping on weight in high school. Part of that was because he was doing so many things, but he was never much more than 210 pounds at any given time. Jayshon Ross has a lot more muscle mass right now, is every bit as fast. And once he develops that arsenal of moves, especially from a 3-point stance, that's a guy that's going to be a problem for collegiate offensive tackles in any conference. And so definitely the type of player that you can foresee becoming a starter in SEC play come 2025, 2026. I like him a lot.
Yeah. Well, so people keep asking, and we got another super chat here from Cole Birdwell. Did we get to Mongo? Okay, first
we got
let me go to
Mongo.
Mongo.
Oh, wait. Mongo
There's
has
a second
another
one from Mongo. Appreciate the super chat. $10 there. How long after the visits until Stone and Winery discussed their visits?
So I'm guessing.
Winery's already talked
I think
to
he's
us.
referencing the Tennessee visit this weekend.
Oh, okay.
I will have.
Okay, so on that, I'll talk to Stone and I'll get updates on that. So we should have it within 48 hours of the visit, hopefully. Hope that makes sense to you and that's good enough. We'll have sourced updates prior to that, but actually from the kids, I'm not real big into like bombarding them and all that type of stuff. Like it's on their own time. They'll call me. Yeah, they do. They do a good job of, if you have a relationship with the kid, they're going to call you back and return your call and text you or whatever when they get time or when they feel like it. So, and usually they're pretty good about it 24, 48 hours after the visit, after everything's calmed down and their phone's not going 90 to nothing. They'll get back to you. Cole Birdwell, little late in. Can I get Cliff Notes on what I missed? Also, is Mr. McDonald the new Mr. LeBlanc? Hello. Number one, we just talked about the SEC stuff. Kind of gave our talks about the matchups, the road games, the home games. Maybe Alabama being the first game period of the 2024 season, just because of how the SEC likes to line up their scheduling and how they spread out their non-cons. And then obviously with the Mr. McDonald's been a friend of mine for 20 plus years. So he's always going to be on here. Mr. LeBlanc is still going to be on here. He's an OU guy. I'm not going to dive into everything about it, but LeBlanc's dad is OU and he will be watching these forever. He even called to tell me, he's like, hey man, I'm still Oklahoma all the way. Has nothing to do with you guys. He did not want his kid to transfer. So we'll just leave it at that. So anyways, all right, man. I guess let's dive into some ChampU barbecue, bro. Yeah, I think, I guess we gave kind of a follow up to everybody. If they haven't listened to our podcast, you can go to where this is going to be the same streams on Apple, the same streams on all that. Obviously, whether it's Google, Spotify, Amazon, you're going to get our YouTube live and our podcast all on that stream. Also, I have to say this before we move on. Right now on OUinsider.com, if you go and sign up, you get OU Insider for free all the way to August 10th, which is fall camp. You get it for free for essentially almost 2 months. It means you'll get the official visit season. You'll get potential commit season, and through July, a little bit of August for free. And then if you stick around, you're going to get all that other stuff, the season, all the other recruiting stuff, the fall camp, the team notes, how people progressing during the fall camp, the practices, all that type of stuff. So right now is the best time to go to OUinsider.com right now and sign up and get free access to OU Insider all the way up to August 10th if you sign up right now. All right, Parker, let's talk about the ChampU barbecue. If I said right now of the 28 visitors that are going to be on campus, if I said name 4 guys that
Four
you think
guys.
are on commit watch, who would they be?
Okay. The obvious one to start off is Jay Ross. I mean, we talked about that one already.
Correct.
Absolutely. I think he's on commit watch. I would also say because it's his last official visit, I would watch James Nesta closely. This is his first trip to Oklahoma, but this is an offer he was very excited about. And so OU pretty instantly jumped near the top for him when they offered last month. That's one that I would keep an eye on as well. I'd put him on commit watch just because I think a decision is getting made pretty soon here, one way or another. To drive the hype up here, but I do get the sense that Caden Durham is probably not too far off from deciding. And I like where OU sits there. Number 4, how about Michael Boganowski, whom we've had
That's a
pegged
good
as an
one.
OU lean for quite a while. I think as I look at some of the other guys on this list, I do think Caden Massey finishes out his official visit swing. Same for Wyatt Gilmore. Devin Jordan, I guess I could see that one coming to an end over the weekend potentially. But sorry, am I stealing your thunder? You go ahead. You answer your own question.
No, I was like, before you go into all these guys, let me say something here. So mine would be, you named 2 of mine right off the bat with Jay Ross, obviously. And then Michael Boganowski was the other one that I just feel like Oklahoma's in a really good spot for him. I think this official visit could change a lot of things. He has the K-State one following it. He has Florida State in the middle of the week. I think Oklahoma's going to do all they can to try to make sure those visits do not take place. He doesn't really need to take the K-State visit. He lives 20 minutes from K-State. Him going on that official visit changes absolutely nothing for him. And I think him and his family realize that. I think the Florida State one is what Oklahoma is really trying to stop. And I don't think Florida State is that much of a player right now. But if they get him on campus, that could change, right? I mean, so right now it feels like a K-State OU battle with Oklahoma kind of the edge. But if he does go to that Kansas State visit, you got to be biting your nails if you're OU. So, but right now, the trend feels like Oklahoma's going to do all they can and will continue to try to do all they can to make sure that stops. So Jay Ross, Michael Boganowski. If this was at the end of June, I would say Devon Mitchell, but it's not. And so I'm going to go Caden Massey as another guy, which I'm shocked you didn't name him.
I feel very strongly that he's going to finish out his official visit slate with that Kansas
Fair
State
enough.
trip. Yeah.
Gotcha. I guess the last one for me probably Devon Mitchell, or excuse me, Devin Jordan. Excuse me. I just think Oklahoma's in a really, really good spot. It went from TCU being the team to beat to now it feels like after all of these visits, it's going to be Oklahoma they get kind of the last say. And I just feel like they're in a really good spot. You brought up Caden Durham, and I'm with you on that. But there's a part of me that just feels like LSU is going to keep swinging and swinging and swinging until they're just out of swings or they strike out, essentially, or there's 3 outs kind of deal. I mean, I just don't see them giving up on that because they have the track, and that is something that's very, very important to him. And obviously Oklahoma's trying to pull the same thing. It's similar to Taylor Tatum. I think Oklahoma's trying to do all they can to say, hey, look, you can come play baseball at a perennial power at Oklahoma, just like you can at USC, and you don't have to be 22 hours away from your parents or a 4-hour flight from your parents. Instead, you can be a 4.5-hour drive from mom and dad, or a 6-hour drive, whatever it is. So I don't I feel you on that. I'm just a little bit more hesitant. Um, I think the better question is going to be, we've talked about David Stone. How do you feel? And we've talked about Joseph Jonah Jonah. We both kind of feel Georgia is a team to beat heading into this official visit. But when he did visit Oklahoma twice before Georgia started pushing for him, Oklahoma was at the top. So Georgia's going to be tough to beat, but I don't think they're unbeatable, if that makes sense. Um, how about Nigel Smith? What is your thoughts on him?
I don't get the sense that Nigel Smith has an imminent decision here, but that my feeling has never really changed on that recruitment, and it won't change this weekend. Oklahoma has been in the driver's seat for over a year now, and I feel strongly that they're going to stay there. I know there are some folks that are kind of worried about Ohio State there. Not really buying that at this point in time. That's not to say that things couldn't shift a little bit as the decision creeps closer, but look, that kid has never done anything but say all the right things about Oklahoma. There's a ton of confidence from the OU end that they are the team to beat and have been the team to beat for the kid. And so I find it hard to believe, at least at this point in time, that he's not a member of OU's 2024 class. That's been, gosh, feels like that's been one of the safest bets for quite some time. Now, granted, you could have said the same thing about Peyton Pierce, and look how that ended up. But don't really get the sense that there is another player in that recruitment right now that was even as close to Oklahoma as Ohio State was for Peyton Pierce.
Yeah. Just a real quick note, Oklahoma did just offer Hutchinson's junior college defensive tackle Danny Sallier just now.
Saili.
Okay. Well, this is what I know about him. Oklahoma evaluated him back in early May and again in kind of late middle May, and have been talking to and recruiting him for quite some time. I wasn't sure whether if they were going to offer him or not. So honestly, this kind of surprises me this late in the game. But
it doesn't surprise me, and here's why. Derek LeBlanc.
Well, I guess that makes sense. They need numbers now, but yeah, I wasn't sure whether he was going to pick up the offer or not. But from what I've been told, is that he's very raw, but his feet are ridiculous for a guy his size, and that is just what Oklahoma has just been fixated on with him. And if they had the numbers and they felt like something could happen, so it does kind of make sense what you're saying. They had the numbers, or they felt like they could take him, they were going to do it, but they just kept getting further and further away from the evaluation and the talks with him and the talks about him through sources that I just figured that ship sailed. So, or how would you pronounce his last name again?
Saili.
I just figured that ship sailed.
And there's the dad joke. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. 64365, I'll take it. Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's about depth at this point for Oklahoma in that defensive line group, especially with Derek LeBlanc out the door. That probably wasn't a guy that was going to play a whole heck of a lot, if at all, in 2023. But get a JUCO guy in Saili that's still got 3 years of eligibility ahead of him to work with. It's not necessarily a 1-for-1 replacement of LeBlanc, but it's a guy that you can develop. You don't have to count on him needing to play in year one, but you can give it a year. You can give it 2 years, see where things go. If he doesn't crack it, you push him to the portal, right? Happens all the time. And he can be on his merry way. But it feels to me like a move where Oklahoma's saying, hey, you know what? Like the upside here, willing to see where things go. Do you see this guy play in 2023? My bet would be no. But could you see him being a big situational run stuffer in the SEC in 24 and 25? Yeah, I certainly think that's on the table.
Yeah, no, I think look, he has really good feet. He's a big body guy. I think the biggest thing about all this is when you got Laulu, um, you got Saili, and then you've got who's the other the Utah State, Michigan,
Phil
um,
Paya.
Paya. You got three guys that are Samoan on or Tongan, whatever you know, whatever ethnicity, but they're basically island guys, right? You got Dylan Gabriel. I mean, that is becoming a big deal at Oklahoma. And if you're, hey, that's been an Oregon USC thing for a while, right? Like they've basically owned the Islanders as far as getting the commitments from them and that type of recruitment, right? Oklahoma is starting to make a big dent in that. And I think that's going to pay dividends. The long run, I think that's huge for Oklahoma. I really do. The more you can get of those Islanders, the Samoans, the Tongans around your program, the better, because they're big-bodied athletes that are just really, really good in college, notoriously good players in college, and a lot of them become notoriously good players in the NFL. And I mean, how many guys has Oklahoma had that have been of the Islander types? Trying to think. Obviously, you had um, the offensive lineman 2015 through 2018 went to Minnesota. Oh my gosh. Help me out here, Parker.
Went to Minnesota, you said. Are you thinking of
Yeah,
Drew Samia?
Samia. They had Drew Samia. Oh my gosh, man. They've had several. They had
CJ
Famatahu,
Ayu.
CJ Ayu, Famatahu. Um, Trying to think. Who was the offensive lineman from Trinity High School? 2011 to like 2014, 2015.
For the life of me, I
Three-star
don't know.
committed to Baylor, flipped to Oklahoma. And now I'm drawing blanks now that I have to think of all these guys. I'm so sorry, people. Gosh dang it, man. People are going to tell me. Costantati. There he is. Costantati. Thank you. Yep. So, I
EBO
mean,
said
they've
Parker
had
must
their
have told them
fair
about
share.
Mo Bettis.
Say what?
EBO in the chat said Parker must have told them about Mo Bettis.
Yep.
The Mo Bettis pipeline, folks.
Yeah, Nila Costantati. Obviously, they all weren't on the same team like this. So I think that's going to play a big part. Like when you bring these kids in to recruit from Hawaii, from just Samoan background, and they come in, they see that there's, 4 or 5 guys just like them on the roster. That's going to play really well. And you feel more comfortable, more at home. I mean, you saw it. Like, I'll tell you this. There was a big group of a Hawaii group that came up and all camped. They camped at the high school camp, but they also camped at the youth camp when my son was there. So there was and they all had the Hawaii shirts on and like of their whatever their group name was. And I just thought, that's kind of a cool deal that Oklahoma is becoming pretty transcendent down there in Hawaii as well. Just a really, really, really big deal as far as recruiting goes. And if they can keep making that long lasting, I think it'll pay dividends for the program big time.
Well, yeah, hopefully folks aren't too fixated on the one that got away and Cecilia Kana because
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Didn't even bring that up, Parker.
Well,
for a reason, but there you
was
go.
going to. Somebody was going to.
Nobody did. Nobody did. You had to kick them in the balls while they were down, man.
The Hutch, Jesse James in the chat says the Hutch roster has this dude at 6'2", 389
yeah, he's large.
pounds.
He's going to have to drop some weight at Oklahoma to start to play.
I would think so, because when was the last time Oklahoma had a player listed on the roster above 360? I think Bray Walker was up to 355 at one point. But that is the heaviest player I can recall at the University of Oklahoma offhand.
I think Lampkin got up there, and so did I think Mo Dampier got pretty big as well.
But I knew Mo Dampier was big. I still didn't think he was that big. Dang.
No, he he had a pro. I just remember him picking up a fumble against Kansas. It may have been 2004 ish, and there's nobody that's going to catch him except for he just runs out of gas at about the 20. He just starts huffing and just gets brought down from behind because he was so overweight. So I mean, that kind of tracks a little bit.
Last thing, Brandon. Last thing. Let's hit here before we jump off the air. The offer to Andy Bass yesterday, who had FBS offers as a quarterback, in fact, took an official visit to Syracuse last weekend as a quarterback, camped at Oklahoma yesterday at running back, and walked away with his biggest offer to date. Now, what's interesting to me is that this offer happened while Xavier Robinson was on campus for his OV. And it kind of feels like those two guys, while they are not necessarily cut from the same cloth in terms of their size, in terms of their build, in terms of their skill set, they are similar in that you see them as almost positionless backfield players at Oklahoma, where, maybe they're technically classified as a running back, but you see them playing a very variegated, specialized role in the offense. So to offer two of those same kids from within the state,
it's almost like, hey, Xavier, better hurry up.
Well, exactly. It's like, okay, well, do you want to be here? You want to go to Iowa State? Because if you want to be here, hey, come on. But if you want to go to Iowa State, we'll just take this kid instead. And I will say, in talking to a few people around Andy Bass, as well as to Bass himself, doesn't feel like that's necessarily a slam dunk for Oklahoma. I don't question that if they really press for the kid, they can end up getting him. But he's also about, like, you want to talk about an offer sheet that's about to blow up. He has been in contact with a ton of big-time schools. I'm talking schools that have played for and won national championships over the last few years.
So do you take, just out of curiosity, if you're Oklahoma, say Xavier Robinson commits to you, and let's say for hypothetical reasons, Caden Durham commits to you, you've got two. Do you take a third? If it's not Taylor Tatum, do you take a third? You're muted.
Well, I'm not muted. I haven't said anything yet, but here's my thought. It almost feels like there's a spot in this class that's being set aside for somebody that's not Xavier. Like, okay, so you have, let's project this class out. You have a quarterback, right? Maybe two quarterbacks. You have
oh my gosh, Parker, that was going to be one of the four that I was going to say. I was going to throw Samaj Jones out there as a fourth commit watch.
There you go. So
crap.
You might have two quarterbacks. You're probably looking at four wide receivers at this point, probably looking at four offensive linemen. But between the running back room and the tight end room, there's space for three running backs, and there's definitely space for two tight ends. But that second tight end spot,
running back,
and that third running back spot, it doesn't feel like those two spots have to necessarily be attached to that position group.
Right.
And so you can throw a whole bunch of guys into the pile there as guys that could potentially end up with that spot. Andy Bass, Xavier Robinson. I'd throw Ivan Carrion in there as well.
You feel like that's going to even, like, I don't know how I feel about that, because it almost feels like Ezukama is going to come in there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if Ezukama is your fourth wide receiver, that's all fine and well. I still think there's probably one of those spots for Ivan Carrion. I heard some interesting stuff from the Texas Tech side on Carrion yesterday, and I reported it on OUinsider.com for those of you that are curious. But it feels like the spot that we have assumed will go to Xavier Robinson, and the spot that we have assumed would go to Cooper Alexander up until last week, those two spots aren't necessarily attached to any specific position group and can be reallocated to those type of versatile offensive players that could do a multiplicity of things and play a multiplicity of positions. So again, Andy Bass, Xavier Robinson, Ivan Carrion, those types of guys, I think all in the mix to end up with one of those two spots.
No, that's fair. I to me, I think like you call them positionless, but it's more like, okay, is Xavier Robinson is he going to be a big bodied back like Samaje Perine, Ramondre Stevenson type guy? Or are you going to allow him to be more of a Meach guy, a Dimitri Flowers type guy where you can line him up in the backfield and you're going to hand him the ball off, 3 or 4 times a game, but you're also going to split him out. You're going to let him play into space because for a guy that's 6'3", 235 pounds, the cat can move a little bit too. And so, and I think with Bass, I think he's kind of a bigger McCaffrey type. And I know that is this racist type thing because you're just saying because he's a fast white running back with blonde hair. But I mean, like, they're similar types of players, right? Like, you get them out in space and they're just ridiculously talented and they're hard to catch and they're not going to get caught from behind. And you can run a lot of screens. You can run a lot of reverses with him. You can do a lot of different things with a player like him that you don't really need a position. He can be kind of trying to think the dude for the 49ers that does the same thing.
Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, there you go. Not racist. So, yeah, there you go. Like kind of a multiplicity type of guy.
Here's the last thing I want to add on Andy Bass before we wrap up. Just for context here on how well this kid moves. And if you've seen pictures of him, he's jacked.
Oh my God.
Very well built kid. But he won a state title with a 10.56 in the 100 meters as a junior. Gavin Freeman won a state title at Heritage Hall in the 100 meters with a 10.68 as a senior.
Yeah, this dude's faster.
So, again, context for just how explosive of an athlete Andy Bass is.
No, yeah, he's ridiculous. He could not be covered. Like, for those that y'all weren't at camp, the dude could not be covered to save his life. Like, he was just unguardable and uncoverable. The guy, it was pretty awesome to watch. So was Grayson Harris, by the way. Grayson Harris is a freak. He is so much faster in pads than he is without pads because he's one of those guys that if he's running a 4.6 40 without pads, he stays the same when he puts pads on. The speed doesn't change. Therefore, he's going to outrun a 4.4 guy because most 4.4 guys drop down to 4.6 guys whenever they're 4.7 guys whenever they're in pads. So, I mean, it's quite phenomenal what Oklahoma's, accumulating at that wide receiver. I mean, even at quarterback, it's kind of absurd. It's back to the old days, what Oklahoma fans are used to at those positions. And I think Emmett Jones and Jeff Levy are going to continue to do that. I guess we're going to cut it off right here. We've been going an hour and 15 minutes here, hour 10 minutes. So if you're not following this YouTube channel, please do. Please hit that subscribe button down there. How many subscribers do we have? Do you know?
On the YouTube channel, we're sitting just shy of 9,500 subscribers.
Oh my gosh, we need to get to 10K quickly right now, Sooners fans. Please just hit that subscribe button. We put out a lot more. We're going to have multiple podcasts this week. We already had one. We're going to have another. We had the quick slant up. This is going to be up there. So that's 4 videos in a 4 or 5 day span, and more to come following the ChampU barbecue. On top of that, OU Insider is free right now, all the way to August 10th. You sign up now. You don't get charged until August 10th. Literally, you don't get charged. So sign up, see if you like it. Give us 2 months. Give us a chance. And I promise you'll like it. There's so much information. I dropped a ton of information on there tonight already. Parker dropped some this morning. We've got a complete list of the ChampU barbecue coming up. We've got camp notes coming up from tomorrow. We've got, pre-ChampU barbecue notes, where they stand with everybody, just complete write-ups, source information, all types of stuff coming for you guys on OU Insider, and it's worth it. I'm doing a VIP chat right now. I've answered probably 30 questions already. I'm going to answer probably 30 more, 40 more. So if you come on there right now, it's the perfect time just to give us a try. And it's free, all the way to August 10th. Right now, if you sign up with OU Insider. And now I'm going to let, before I close this out, I'm going to let Parker talk about Olipop.
That's right. Olipop is the official sponsor of OU Insider Live, as well as the Under the Visor podcast. Look, folks, soda damages your body in a lot more ways than you realize. And the folks at Olipop have found a way, thanks to years and years of research and development, they found a way to make soda healthy. And they have, in 14 delicious, familiar flavors. It'll cost a little bit more than your average soda, but a lot of you folks are the same type of people that they'll spend $4 or $5 on a good cup of coffee, right? A couple of bucks for a soda that tastes amazing and that is good for you is well worth the investment. And that's what Olipop offers. 9 grams of fiber in every can, prebiotics to enhance digestive health, never more than 5 grams of sugar in any single one of those cans, but it maintains that genuine sweetness that you get with your typical sugary sodas. Doesn't taste artificial, doesn't taste leafy like stevia. It's sweetened with a proprietary blend of 7 natural sweeteners to give you the most authentic taste and flavor and fizz while being far healthier for you. Well, healthy period as a soda, which no other soda on the market can claim. So if you haven't already tried it out, go to drinkolipop.com. You can use promo code ChampU20 to get 20% off your first online order, or you can go pick them up in stores. Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, and Sprouts are their retailer partners in the state of Oklahoma. And right on cue, we have camera failure number 2, and I think that's a good spot to sign off, Brandon.
Yeah. All right. Again, follow, like, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Go to OU Insider, sign up. It's free. Or go get an Olipop right now, which is our proud sponsor, by using the promo code ChampU20, and you get 20% off. Correct, Parker?
ChampU20 for 20%.
All right.
Correct.
That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live, brought to you by Olipop. For my man Parker Thune, for my man Spencer Forsythe, my name's Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day. We will see you on the next podcast to talk some more ChampU barbecue, to talk some more SEC and all that type of stuff. You guys have a blessed day.